Hi, Daph.
Hello, Mother. What's your disturbing fact?
Okay, we're doing this right away.
Well, people don't like our bullshit, apparently, except for the people who love us and love our bullshit. But for the other people we're trying to attract to listen to us, we're trying to attract you. And so we're not going to talk about bullshit. What's your disturbing fact?
But some people like our bullshit. But anyway,
I know.
I'm sure we'll have
Thanks,
plenty
at Lynn321.
we'll have
Love
plenty.
ya.
Yeah, but where's our review, Lynn's321 and Casey?
Oof.
Okay. All right.
Crack the whip, why don't you?
Yeah. Well,
Teacher Gail is in session.
Just saying. If you love us, give us a review because we need more of them.
I think Lynn has left us one.
Oh, okay. Well, then, never mind. If you did, thank you. If not, come on, girls. All right.
Get it together, ladies.
Okay. Have you heard about and I practice this 80 times, so we'll see.
I hope this isn't the rodent-related thing.
It's not. Have
Okay,
you heard
good.
of the Guanajuato mummies? Guanajuato mummies.
No, I had to think about it. I'm like, nope, still haven't. Even though I'm trying to search in my brain to see if I have them, I still haven't
heard about it. So the Mexican city of Guanajuato suffered from a heavy cholera epidemic in 1833, and tons of people
Why
died.
my brain just went, I'm allergic to chlorella.
Wow. I bet you'd also be allergic to cholera. But
I had to take that vaccine to go to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was
So-
nasty.
A lot of people died from it. The disease spread really quick. It was a pandemic, basically.
Uh-huh.
And so as soon as people died, they got buried right away.
Okay.
So, but sometimes, unfortunately, some of the people weren't actually dead. And it was like that whole thing where you put them in the ground and they have a bell or whatever.
I hate that. That stresses me out so bad.
But they didn't do the bell thing. They just like buried them because they're like in a big ass hurry because they're like, well, fuck, this person died of cholera. Because in rare cases, or not that rare, but in some semi-rare cases, it can make your heart stop for a little while. And so then you stop breathing and then they think you're dead.
And then they bury you right
freaking
away.
dehydrated because it's, it's an intestinal thing where you basically have liquid diarrhea and vomiting.
To death.
Yeah. And literally, if it's not treated within hours, sometimes people die.
Fuck.
So it's a quick thing. So that's why when people were infected with it and they died, they like buried them like right away. So these people that got
It's
buried.
like one of my greatest fears. Being buried alive.
Okay.
Well, it sounds just horrible.
Well, yeah, it doesn't sound good.
No, it doesn't sound like a great time. Sorry, continue.
That's okay. So anyway, some of the people were buried alive, and the bodies ended up being dug up because the relatives couldn't afford to pay the taxes on the graves. So
Okay.
it's not because they wanted a proper burial or anything, but the Mexican government decided that they needed to raise the taxes on these graves because they were like diseased or whatever. And so if the people couldn't pay the taxes, the bodies were excavated, and then the grave diggers stumbled upon these faces that were like distorted because they were like freaking out, and so the dead didn't necessarily turn into skeletons or didn't turn into skeletons at all, but they were perfectly preserved mummies because of the dry Mexican heat, low humidity, and basically it just mummified their bodies
Okay.
in a natural way. So not like mummification like the Egyptians.
Right, they didn't
put
wrap
these
them
people
up.
in the ground. Yeah. They put these people in the ground and then they buried them.
But they take out their organs and all that like they did
No,
with mummies?
they just fucking buried them
Okay.
because they didn't want to spread the disease. So they, like I
well,
said,
that
it
makes
wasn't
sense. If you die, they call it you're mummified. So, I mean, that makes sense.
not necessarily.
Well, if you're decomposed in a certain way with your skin still being kind of intact, I think is when they call it mummification.
Yeah, I guess. But these are like creepy looking, super creepy. They are housed at, let me see if I can say this, El Museo de las Mamias.
Okay.
Oh, that sounded pretty good.
That did. I don't know what that means, but
The Museum of the Mummies.
Well, I picked up museum.
The Museum of the Mummies. And so there's like several of these mummies that
I want to
have...
go there. It's Museum of the Mummies. That
Yep.
sounds great.
Yep.
Well, maybe, where's this? How far is this place from Mexico City?
I don't know.
Like, maybe when we're in Mexico City next year, we should go.
Perhaps. But anyway, so some of the people were buried alive. There's one mummy in there that her face is all scratched and her arms are scratched because she was buried alive. There's blood in her mouth and stuff. And then there's another one that is just a tiny little baby. The child mummy is a 24-week-old fetus, which is the smallest mummy in the world. And its mother is standing right next to it. And yeah, so that's it. One of the mummies is the French doctor Remigo Leroy. He was the first mummy to be exhibited in the El Museo de las Mummies. And there's 108 mummies that are in the museum. And it was built on top of the finding place where the mummies were buried. And some of the mummies even wear the clothes they were buried in. And not surprisingly, staff members at the museum don't want to spend time alone there because the mummies that are on display, the people who work there feel like they're being watched. And they sometimes claim to hear whispers and mumbles. And because obviously it's probably maybe haunted because there's mummies. Yeah. So they were taken, from their final rest. They were taken from their final resting place to be put on display. And not only, they weren't, like I said, not immediately. That was not the reason, but it's because they raised the taxes. They had to be exhumed. And then people were like, holy shit,
if I was hearing mummies, I would literally need a 72-hour padded room vacation.
So people, like I said, they saw them. They thought they were cool looking. And they were like, people would want to see this. It's like one of those weird curiosity thingies, which obviously it is because we're sitting here talking about going and seeing it.
Yeah, I'm like, I want to go, even though it freaks me out, the idea of it. I want to go see it.
Yeah, so that's it. That's the Guanajuato mummies.
Thank you. That's interesting. We should find out how far it is from Mexico City.
Yeah.
Since we're going to a wedding there.
108.
108 of them. 108 so is there more of them buried? Obviously, you said lots of people died.
Yeah, but the people who could afford to pay the taxes stayed buried.
Got to keep them buried.
Yeah, so that's kind of fucked up.
Yeah, right? But what if they still excavate them?
Well, not that it's fucked up that they are still buried. It's fucked up that the Mexican government raised the taxes so high that people couldn't afford to pay the taxes.
Right, they had to exhume people's bodies.
Yeah, you would think it would cost more to exhume the body than to just let them stay there without paying their taxes. But yeah, what do I know?
Right. Like, what if you had no heirs? Oh, that's the little baby. What if you had no heirs and you, that looks uncomfortable.
Sorry.
Anyway, my mom's showing me pictures of them. Is that the one who had her mouth open?
I don't know.
Well, obviously they died with their mouth open.
Yeah.
Or something crawled in there and kept it open.
Well, or they were buried alive. And so they're like in this screaming state of like, oh, fuck, let me out of here.
Anyway, what I was trying to say before, I forgot what I was trying to say. I forgot.
Anyway.
No, but I was responding because people can't see that you're fucking showing me pictures. Remember, we're still not a visual podcast.
Someday, maybe.
Maybe, but nobody wants to see us.
Probably not.
Anyway, okay, are we ready for the happenings of the episode?
I'm so ready.
Vienna, it's time. What Vienna has requested of me, that she sent me a text and said, please talk about this.
But not an official case request, but whatever.
So that I talk about, well, she doesn't have Instagram, and I'm not going to make her go out of her way to send us an email.
Okay.
Well, if anyone else has my number, they can send a case request there too. And I'll count that as quote unquote official. Anyway, she requested that I talk about, drumroll please. Yeah, you're not making any sound.
I can't because I have an orange in my mouth.
Why are you eating when we're doing this? You're going to hear all of your obnoxious chewing sounds and I'm trying to speak. Vampires in New Orleans.
Nice. It's not like I'm eating chips. I mean, orange.
I can hear you chew from here. So can you please stop eating it, or can we please pause until you're done? Okay, so all of the orange is now shoved into my mother's mouth. Okay, so the history of New Orleans vampires is deeply... Why are you stopping to laugh?
I'm covering my mouth to mute the sound of entire orange in my mouth.
Popping? Yeah, I can hear it. And I'm deaf. So what does that tell you?
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Back to NOLA, vampires.
So, the history of New Orleans vampires is deeply rooted in the city's folklore. During the 18th and 19th centuries, the port city was a hub for trade and immigration, bringing tales from Europe and the Caribbean. Many of these stories are obviously centered on supernatural beings. New Orleans' shadowy streets seem like a natural habitat for vampires to thrive in.
So much so.
So the question then begs, are vampires in New Orleans?
Yeah, duh.
So modern tales suggest vibrant vampire societies, bunch of underground communities, like just, all the spirit of these immortal spirits that don't really have spirits.
Yeah, if I was a vampire, I would probably live in New Orleans if I knew it was an option. Like if there was a big vampire population, and people were like, "Oh my God, you're a vampire! You should totally move there," and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, New Orleans for sure."
I like the idea of Forks, Washington.
Okay, Bella.
This is the skin of a killer, Bella. We were going to a wedding the other day and I accidentally used a brush that had glitter on it previously to blend out my entire face. And so I'm sitting here and I'm looking at my mom. I'm like, this is the skin of a killer, Bella.
But perhaps you had to be there.
Yeah, perhapsatively. So many people claim to, have seen real vampires lurking in the shadows or have been invited to vampire events. Many people are also self-proclaimed vampires. Many feed into the myths while drawing visitors from around the world, to invite them into New Orleans of these stories or to be feasted upon, whichever you decide.
Wow.
So one of the many legends is tied to the French Quarter vampire, where visitors often hear haunting tales around historic landmarks like the Lalaurie Mansion, which we haven't talked about on here, I don't think. Yeah, okay.
It's on my list.
Me too.
Okay.
Well, we love her.
I know,
we don't love her. We're fascinated by her.
So I'm like,
she's actually a horrible piece of shit. Madame Lalaurie Delphine.
Yeah.
Multiple time serial killer.
Because when I did Elizabeth Bathory. Yes. Okay, words. When I did her, you thought that I was doing Delphine Lalaurie when I was like, she's like one of the most
prolific
killers in the whole history of women killers.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But it wasn't her, but she was on my list.
So people and vampires alike in New Orleans, they're said to congregate in secret societies. There's obviously like a lot of mysteries around these societies. Today, these legends are kept alive through ghost tours and obviously books that dive into, these historical or fictorial word? Fictitious accounts.
Pictorial could be a word. You could make it one.
I just did.
Yeah.
There's obviously a lot of vampire folklore, like my favorite, The Vampire Diaries. And actually, there's the spin-off of The Vampire Diaries called The Originals, which takes place in New Orleans, ironically. And then there's the author Anne Rice, who has a lot of vampire stories.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this user, which I'm guessing it's 420 Lana Slut, and I'm hoping you're like a slut for Lana Del Rey is what that means. On Reddit, on the subreddit about vampires in New Orleans wrote, "Hi, I live in New Orleans. Sure, there's a subculture here of vampires, and Anne Rice is from here and wrote stories about them here. However, vampires originated in Eastern Europe 100 years ago, or hundreds of years ago. People thought their loved ones would rise from the grave, and there were large communities who believed this and fought against that perceived threat. As far as I know, nothing of the sort has ever happened in New Orleans. The first fictional, that's the word. Fictional, not fictional. Fictional vampire was named Carmilla, and the book is from 1872, a little over 100 years before Anne Rice's novels from the 1970s. The author of Carmilla, Sheridan Le Fanu, lived in Ireland." And I don't want to read the rest of this because it's going to give up some of the information I'm going to dive into next, which is about the Casket Girls.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of the Casket Girls?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, I was like thinking about Scooby-Doo and the Hex Girls, which is different.
Oh, be still my heart.
Sorry.
I love the Hex Girls.
I'm like, the Casket. Nope, the Hex Girls, Scooby-Doo. Gotcha. That was where my brain went.
They are vampires, though, but they're not real vampires. But they were real witches because they take out their fangs.
Mm.
And they said it was all just for a ploy.
Oh, yeah, for show.
Yeah, from the Witch Hunt movie, from The Witch's Ghost, Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, I think is what that movie's called, where I believe they're like literally somewhere in Louisiana hunting down a witch's ghost, and that's where the Hex Girls make their first appearance. I'm a little bit of a Scooby-Doo fan, if you will.
A Scooby-Doo.
Little Scooby-Doo obsessed.
Right. Hey, I have a question. Are vampires people or are they not people?
They're people.
Okay.
Well, people say they're vampires.
Okay.
But I mean, there's the fangers. Fangers. People that have fangs. The vampires that have fangs. But the thing that they all have in common is drinking blood, right?
But don't they call them the undead?
I don't know.
I feel like I've heard that.
I feel like that's zombies.
Oh, maybe. I'm mixing up my vampire zombie witch thing.
Your lores.
Yes.
Okay, Casket Girls. The earliest day of New Orleans when the governor of Louisiana at the time, Jean-Baptiste Lemoyne de Bienville, made a request that the government back in France send women who were like marriage material to the colony in New Orleans to increase the population.
I have heard of this, actually.
Okay.
But keep going.
Yeah, because I'm like, people might have not heard of this.
Well, just because I've heard of it doesn't mean, okay, stop, we're done.
We're not talking
Follow
about
us on
it
Instagram. Bye-bye.
So the request was, odd. In the late 17th century, then King Louis, I think the 14th, XIV, I think that's the 14th, sponsored a program called Filet du Roi, or the King's Daughters, which put around 800 women onto ships from France to the settlements in Canada. And then from Quebec, they were shipped down to New Orleans, so these women were like carrying these suitcases, right? They're small wooden suitcases called cassette, and that loosely then translates to casket, which is how we get their name.
Okay.
Anyway, they were carrying these like small little things, right? So it's this modern day, they'd be considered like an airline carry-on bag, like the size of a traditional carry-on suitcase kind of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
But, this was their whole lives in these bags.
Yeah.
Since they're moving from France to the Americas.
Mm-hmm.
So this is funny. This article said in a quote, "Not what I had in mind" response to BMV's request. France drew from the country's prisons and poorhouses an orphanages to send 258 girls and women of obviously not the cleanest reputations to New Orleans from the year 1719 to 1721. Obviously, their arrivals were not well received. Many of these men refused to marry these women. However, in 1728, a new group of girls was sent that they considered to be more acceptable in their standards. As these women stepped onto the shore of New Orleans, people were surprised at their pale, otherworldly complexions, but obviously they were being kept below deck, so they weren't touching the sun at all.
Right.
Their name, Filet à la Casket, was anglicized to the very creepy name of the Casket Girls. Again, that's where we drew that from, was the size of their bags that they were carrying.
Mm-hmm.
Legend says that some of these girls were so strange looking that they couldn't find husbands, and that some of them fell under the care of the Ursuline nuns of New Orleans. They eventually found themselves living in this convent, the Ursuline convent on Charles Street. So the current old Ursuline convent on Charles Street in Ursuline's Avenue was completed in 1753, which was 25 years after the first Casket Girls' arrivals, and is also the oldest structure in New Orleans, built to house the nuns from Rouen, I think is how you say it, France, who were in need of a new building, a new convent in the area.
Mm-hmm.
The sisters ran an orphanage, an infirmary, and a school on the first floor of the new building while they lived on the second floor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then the French colonial building itself, again being the oldest structure, has survived two devastating fires that struck the French Quarter in 1788 and 1794. And then the nuns also cared for the sick and the dying during the outbreaks of the yellow fever and the War of 1812 and the Civil War. So they're
doing a service.
Yeah,
even though they were brought there to be married off, and then they're like, eesh.
No, these are the nuns.
Oh.
That took in the Casket Girls.
Okay. Well, I thought the Casket Girls would become nuns. No?
Nope.
Okay.
They're just being taken care of in this convent.
Okay.
So these nuns are literally doing God's work, taking care of everyone.
Do they help the nuns, or are they just there?
They're being schooled and stuff. They're being educated in the buildings.
Okay.
I think they're just there. And as you could imagine, this building is haunted as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
It was here that the legend said that the Casket Girls found a home on the 3rd floor in the attic. Their coffin-like wooden boxes that had all their possessions were kept at the foot of each of their beds.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, the nuns sealed off the 3rd floor, shuttered the windows, said it was to protect the virtue of the young women in their care. But then the hand mirrors the girls brought with them mysteriously vanished, apparently. Neighbors fell ill. Crops failed. Cats and dogs lived together, which they typically didn't. And I put here that our Daisy girl would have not lived without her cat. So, so Daisy's the abnormality to these dogs.
Right.
So whispers began that the vampire pale girls, the Casket Girls, right? They're vampire pale.
Mm-hmm.
Had brought an evil with them from the old country. Eventually, the nuns threw the Casket Girls out and closed up the 3rd floor attic forever.
That's not cool. That's
And
not
I don't
God's
know
work.
where they went.
That's not God's work.
No, it is not. So years later, a guy repairing the leaky roof found empty caskets, and it all began to make sense. The Casket Girls had apparently smuggled in vampires from Eastern Europe, vampires who were now leaving blood-drained corpses all over greater New Orleans metro area. Many believe flying vampires wanted to return to their casket on the convent's 3rd floor, which is why windows were permanently sealed with 800 screws that were made of silver that were blessed in Rome by the Pope himself. It turns out that the windows are not only sealed to keep the virtue in, but to keep the evil out.
Yeah.
And allegedly, Pope John Paul II even re-blessed the anti-vampire screws during his 1987 visit to New Orleans. And if you look up on the 3rd floor today, the windows are still shuttered.
Probably a solid plan.
Yeah. So one story holds that in the 70s, a couple ghost hunters ditched the tour at the convent and hid out in the courtyard with the intention of spending the night and monitoring the sealed off 3rd floor for, any vampire shenanigans happening up there.
Mm-hmm.
And then their corpses, drained of the blood, were discovered the following morning.
Oh, shit.
So why they needed
what you
to
wish for.
trespass and not just watch from the public sidewalk is beyond me. But I guess this is how you get yourself killed.
Right. Be careful what you wish for.
Right.
I want to see something. Okay.
Right.
Sucking your blood.
And you're dead. Okay, so the Casket Girls and their contraband bloodsuckers apparently aren't the only macabre legends that are tied to the convent. Ghost hunters report that apparitions of nuns in their dark habits can be seen navigating the original 18th century staircase between the 1st and 2nd floors in the main foyer, or moving about the lower rooms, tending to the spirits of the sick and the dying. But these ghosts haven't found the fame, obviously, that the Casket Girls have found, because there's, obviously all these things about modern day kind of women vampires that take place of the like in current pop culture and movies and stuff. But they don't talk about the nuns in any of those stories. The author of this blog that I read said that her hand is going on the computer to count how many times her great grandmother,
Wow.
the Phil
really
DeRoy,
great.
Anne Talbot, it was born in 1651 in Rouen, France, the same city where the nuns were sent from. A coincidence, maybe? I don't know. Who was married off at 19 in Quebec, was a casket girl. This author claims. Okay, so the next story.
Well, somebody has to be related to them. I believe it.
Yeah. But if you're undead, I don't know how you're caring. If you're dead, if you're immortal, if you are not living and breathing, I don't know how you carry children. But maybe before you die?
Maybe.
I don't know. That's neither here nor there, I suppose. We don't know. Next, there's the story of Jacques Saint... blah, 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 blah. Jacques Saint Germain. Can't say that to save my life. We're just going to call him Saint Germain. The origins of Saint Germain. The legend traced back to an 18th century European figure, the Count of Saint Germain, who was a nobleman, an alchemist, and an alleged immortal who appeared in courts across Europe for decades without ever seeming to age. He was a real man, according to the royal courts, but his life and identity was a mystery, even to everyone around him. He ate at dinner with kings and queens, philosophers like Voltaire, musicians like Mozart, and historians like Casanova. He was known for his dazzling charisma, his impossible wealth, and his ancient wisdom. The Count of Saint Germain vanished, though, from all records in the late 1700s, even though some people are like, he never really died. So his background seems shrouded in mystery. He was born maybe in 1691 or sometime in the early 1700s, or maybe he wasn't, and maybe he was already centuries old by then. People say sometimes that he was as old as Christ, that he's, very old.
Yes. That would be very
he
old.
was from either Spain or Italy or Poland, and his real name is not known, as Saint Germain refused to give his real name except to the King of France, Louis XV, because they were close allies, and he knew many languages. He was a skilled musician. He was a chemist. He was an alchemist. So he believed that he found his own way into the immortal life through all his many practices and knowledge. The renowned historian that he spent time with, Giacomo Girolamo Casanova, wrote this in his memoir of Saint Germain, quote, "This extraordinary man, intended by nature to be king of the impostors and quacks, would say in easy, assured manner that he was 300 years old, that he knew the secret of the universal medicine, that he possessed a mastery over nature, that he could melt diamonds, professing himself capable of forming out of 10 or 12 small diamonds, one large of one of the finest water without any loss of weight. All this, he said, was a mere trifle to him. Notwithstanding his boastings, his barefaced lies, and his manifold eccentricities, I cannot say I thought of him offensive. In spite of my knowledge of what he was, and in spite of my own feelings, I thought him an astonishing man, as he was astonishing me." End quote. So that's kind of interesting.
He sounds pretty magnificent, to be honest.
He does.
But also really kind of freaky and scary.
And now I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if that's where the vampire sparkle from Twilight came from, talking about this guy turning into diamonds.
Maybe. I wonder if he's the one that invented Saint Germain liquor.
That's all on your mind this whole time. Mom's like, I want a tonic in Saint Germain. I do love Saint Germain.
Yeah.
So already
the liquor,
then,
not the man.
Maybe. So he claimed to be centuries old, right? And he sold women liquids that supposedly would make them younger and stop the aging process.
I need some of that.
Same. He would not be seen eating anything. He would only drink a mysterious tea. He claimed to have conversations with Cleopatra and the Queen of Sheba and be present at countless historical milestones like the Council of Nicaea and the wedding in Cana when he turned water into wine. He is also rumored to be involved in Catherine the Great's seize of the throne and being employed by the French king, although speculations about him being a spy were also present, It's like, was he really a helper or was he really a spy? At a party in the manor of Madame de Pompadour, who was the mistress of a king in France in 1760, Countess von Gregory approached him. She thought he was the son of a man who he knew in 1710, but discovered that he was the same man and he hadn't aged a day.
Nice.
Yeah.
I need some of that tea.
Right. A French ambassador from Venice called Rameau and testified that he had known Saint Germain in 1710, but he still looked like a man in his 50s. So weird. In a letter from Horace Walpole, the 4th Earl of Oxford, he describes Comte Saint Germain with, quote, "An odd man who goes by the name of Comte Saint Germain. He had been here these 2 years, and he will not tell who he is or hence, but professes that he does not go by his right name. He sings, plays the violin wonderfully, composes, is mad and not very sensible. He is an Italian, a Spaniard, and a Pole. Someday married a great fortune in Mexico and ran away with her jewels in Constantinople. He is a priest, a fiddler, and a vast nobleman. The Prince of Wales has had an unsatiated curiosity about him, but in vain." End quote. In 1779, he moved to Germany, and he spent time with Prince Karl of Hesse-Kassel.
Okay.
Hesse-Kassel?
Hesse-Kassel?
I don't know.
I don't either.
He said he was 88 years old at this time, and the son of Prince Ragassi of Transylvania, who had lost his throne. Some claim that he was the youngest son born in Bohemia and that his parents were Prince Franz Leopold Regency of Transylvania and Princess Charlotte Amalia of Hesse-Wanfried. And then he was placed as an infant under the care of the last of the Medici family. According to records, he died on February 27th, 1784, but there were sightings of him long before he reached New Orleans. And the question then begs, did he really die? According to more than one source, he keeps appearing throughout different times, never aging and in different places, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some would even venture to say that this was not his first life and that he had been alive long before the 1700s, maybe even as old as Christ, people would say. A historian and philosopher, Voltaire allegedly said about him, quote, "He is a man who knows everything and never dies," end quote. In 1785, he was known to reside in Germany, befriending Anton Mesmer, the pioneer hypnotist that was said to have given Mesmer the ideas of hypnotism. He was also chosen as the Freemasonry representative for the annual 1785 convention in their records. Okay, then after this, he went back to France after taking care of Bastille? I don't know.
Bastille.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I wasn't sure because I know, like, if your name is Camille and you're French, it's Camille. So I was like, is it Bastille? Bastille?
Maybe it's English. Maybe it's the English version then.
Anyway, I only know that because of Emily in Paris. He was last seen then in 1822, not looking any day older. The woman, the counsel to Comtesse de Adamar, I don't know how you say that. Probably just totally butchered that. She wrote in 1821, quote, "I have seen Saint Germain again, each time to my amazement. I saw him when the Queen Antoinette was murdered on the 18th of Brumaire. On the following day, the death of Duke d'Enghien in January 1815, on the eve of the murder of the Duke de Berry." So then he took a new identity, and Albert Vanden wrote, quote, he called himself Major Fraser, lived alone, and never alluded to his family. Moreover, he was lavish with money, though the source of his fortune remained a mystery to everyone. He possessed a marvelous knowledge of all the countries of Europe at all periods. His memory was absolutely incredible, and curiously enough, he often gave his hearers to understand that he had acquired his learning elsewhere than the books. Many is the time he has told me, with a strange smile, that he was certain he had known Nero, had spoken with Dante, and so on, end quote. So I'm basically just setting you guys up by telling you just about this person. There's some ooey vampire stuff to come about him that I have in my notes, but I'm sorry if all that was boring. It's just a history of all the accounts of this different guy.
Yeah, no,
right
it's
here,
not,
there, and everywhere.
Yeah, no, it's not boring because it's over, 200 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did he end up in New Orleans then? According to legend, by boat. In 1902, a man bearing the same name arrived in New Orleans, Saint Germain. Like his supposed predecessor, Jacques Saint Germain, he was described as charming, urban, impossibly wealthy, and oddly ageless. He threw extravagant parties at his home on Royal Street, where guests were marveled at the fine wines and exotic art, and same as the rest of everyone else's accounts, they never ever saw him eat. So he knew many languages again and was captivated his audience with tales from hundreds of years ago with an odd amount of detail that you would have thought he was there. Telling all these stories.
So do vampires not eat?
They drink blood.
Well, I know. But
I don't know. On the Vampire Diaries, they do.
Yeah.
On one of those documentaries.
Oh,
I watched like 3 different documentaries before this, and then I drew nothing from them. I drew from this story, but one of the guys in the documentaries was a self-proclaimed vampire. And it still said that he ate, that the myth of them going out in the sun was fake, like all this stuff, that they can walk in the sunlight, that they still eat, that they just feel most satiated when they have blood. That's basically an iron craving, which, like, same, I love red meat, but I'm not going out and, like, drinking people's blood because I actually hate blood because that freaks me out. It was said that Saint Germain was only observed ever drinking what people thought was red wine. He claimed to be a descendant of the Comte which was one of his other identities. And people pointed out the physical resemblance from the portrait, right? Because it's actually him.
Mm-hmm.
Some people started to wonder if it could be him. He was said to be a womanizer. He often ventured out to the French Quarter to meet young women. The legend took a sinister turn of him. His legend took a sinister turn when a young woman invited to his home one evening fled the house in terror.
Okay.
Some people say that she jumped off the second story of his house. Some people say she just ran out the door screaming. She was either a prostitute or one of the guests at his party that he had invited onto his balcony. According to police reports, she claimed that Saint Germain tried to bite her neck and to draw blood, and that she escaped and she leaped from the second story window and ran to the authorities. And she was terrified and obviously just totally baffled.
What year was this?
I don't know. I don't have a year, I don't think.
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
But it has to be in the 1900s.
Yes, because that's when he was in New Orleans.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When the police arrived at the house, Saint Germain was nowhere to be found. What they did find was bloodstains everywhere, and all of his belongings were gone, except there were tons of wine bottles that were filled with not wine, but guess what?
Blood.
Dun, dun, dun.
I was going to say chocolate milk just for fun, but I know it's not.
Ew. That would spoil pretty quickly, too.
Well, if it's cold.
The incident sent ripples through the community, and a warrant was issued for his arrest, but he was never seen again. Or maybe he was. Who knows?
Or maybe not.
Right. Since his disappearance, stories of a pale, well-dressed gentleman seen walking the French Quarter at night have persisted. There are reports of him being there up until about the 70s. And there was a man named Richard Chanfray who claimed to be him in the 70s. He began appearing on television claiming to be the Count and supposedly demonstrating the ability to transmute boring old lead into gold in front of an audience, except he later died by suicide in 1983. So...
Well, it sounds like there's something not right with that guy, though. Because Saint Germain, although he was out and...
He never claimed to have an identity. He never did anything. This guy was just a fraud, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm like, he's here, there, and everywhere and having parties and throwing around money.
Right, but no one really knows who he is.
Yeah, he's not really going public, if you will.
Witnesses described a tall figure in an old-fashioned clothing, speaking in strange, with an antiquated accent, vanishing into alleyways or slipping into buildings that have been long abandoned. Some local historians and paranormal people believe that he was one and the same as the immortal Count Saint Germain, relocating from Europe to the Americas in search of fresh hunting grounds. Others remain skeptical since there are no police reports found from this incident and not a trace of him has ever, there's no reports of him really ever living on Royal Street in New Orleans. These are just eyewitnesses' accounts and stories and legends being passed down. Mm-hmm. So whether he's an immortal alchemist or an old world vampire or simply creation of, New Orleans legends, their love for macabre stories. He's one of the biggest legends in New Orleans. So it says if you ever find yourself walking on Royal Street on a misty evening, keep an eye out for an elegant stranger with a pale complexion and an ageless face. And if he offers you a drink, you may want to politely decline.
Well, okay. But yes, I would politely decline if anybody on the street offered me a drink.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
A gift card, though. Bring them over. Dutch Bros? Yes, please. Actually, speaking of a drink, hang on. I'm going to take a big swig of this right now. Okay, our next story, it takes place in the year 1932. A young girl stormed down Royal Street. She's visibly panicked, right? Her stride is broken by a police officer who notices that she's visibly freaked the fuck out. Get me the fuck out of here. Her story sounded a bit far-fetched. She was tied up by two brothers. There were several other victims there, and they were held captive so the brothers could drink their blood. The girl claimed that she was only able to escape due to the captor's carelessness in tying her up. Somewhat skeptical, the police officer agreed. He's like, okay, I'll follow you back to where you came from on the corner of Royal Street and St. Anne. Once the police and the girl arrived at the home, which was owned by the Carter brothers, they were horrified to find, as the girl had described, four other victims half dead, tied to chairs in one of the rooms.
Ooh.
So
Was their blood sucked?
all the victims had their wrists wrapped with bandages, which were moist and stained with blood.
Gross.
2 more bodies were wrapped in blankets that were tucked away in another room. The unmistakable suffocating odor of death permeated the whole place.
Gross. And you used Vienna's favorite word, moist.
I know. You're welcome. It seems the brothers left early each morning, just before the daybreak, and they returned just after dark, which maybe that's part of where the legend comes from, of the can't be out in the sunlight, but you'd think they'd hide away at those points. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
It's part of it. I'll take it.
Yeah, but I don't really know where the legend came from. I just speculating that perhaps that's part of it.
Maybe.
Immediately upon their return, they would take off the bandages of the captive's wrists, use a knife, reopen their wounds until the blood flowed from their cuts. They caught the blood in cups, which they drank until they felt satiated. The brothers would then redress the wounds with fresh bandages. They spoke very little, gave no concern for their victims' well-beings, which when I was reading that part, I was like, duh. Why would they have concern for their well-beings?
Right, yeah.
Unless they're trying to keep them as like a constant meal.
Right.
Then they probably would feed them and, you know, take
Like
better
Caroline
care of
in
them.
the Vampire Diaries. How she's
Yeah.
like a snack on the regular.
For Damon in the beginning, yeah.
Ugh.
There's a lot of them that are like that, though, where they're just somebody's snack for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so...
Which is why are they putting it in a cup? I guess you don't have an answer for that.
I don't, but I mean, it's just one of the vampire tales, right? That maybe, well, they were obviously cutting them too. Their teeth weren't the ones, you know, they weren't biting them to get blood.
Mm-hmm.
They were cutting them to get their blood. So,
I want to know if they put it in a chalice versus a cup.
so the girls were obviously just
Was it
food,
like a coffee cup?
not,
Or
not,
Sorry.
they weren't like a well cared for food source. They were just a food source. Unaware that the girl had escaped, John and Wayne Carter went about their day as usual until blah, 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 blah. Only this time when they got home, the police were there waiting for them. They were quickly apprehended. Upon their capture, they confessed almost immediately, begging to be murdered.
begging to be murdered?
Yeah.
That's dramatic.
Well, they were telling the cops, they're like, listen, we're vampires. If you don't kill us, we're just going to keep killing people and drinking their blood. So it said that the brothers were tried as serial killers, convicted, and eventually executed. So the brothers obviously,
Is that legit? Can you look that up? The Carter brothers?
of course, there's no real sources about them.
Damn it.
I mean, but there's thousands of people reporting of
I
this,
know,
right?
but you said they were tried as serial killers and executed. So you would think that there would be you would just think there would be something legit.
Okay, so I just did a quick Goog, and it says they were likely not real, but, you know, of course, there's history that contextualizes them as being real, but records of them aren't real.
I want them to be real.
I don't want these freaks running around on the streets.
Well, they're dead. They were serial killers who
Yeah,
were
but if-
executed.
They existed, so they still exist, unless they're a fucking extinct breed.
Well, that's okay. I don't know. I don't have anything for that. I just want it to be real.
During the early 1900s and the roaring 20s, New Orleans was obviously just bustling. It was the busiest port in the country. Bussin', booming, flourishing. The
Bustling
words.
is a word.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I thought I
Like
just made it
hustle
up.
and bustle.
I don't have it in my notes. The word I had was booming, and then I read a different line that was busy, and I was like, hang on a sec, I can't words. It was, coined the big easy. There was a surplus of disposable income because of, the newfound freedom there in jazz and nightclubs, just all these things. So, if vampires had truly been in New Orleans, there would have been an easy way for them to feast upon at this time.
Mm.
However, a decade later in the Great Depression, everything changed almost overnight. People stayed home. They kept to themselves. So, they probably would have moved along at this point. The vampires, because it wouldn't be very easy for them to find food. However, the rug had been pulled out from underneath what was then a flourishing city at this point. New Orleans had been known for its southern hospitality until Dr. Peter Carl Grafenyoung, student at the time, reflects on the 1930s in his journal. He gives a lovely description of living there, but that, it was just a lot of political troubles, a lot happening there. And so just that, it might have not been the most likely place for vampires to continue to have lived.
Mm-hmm.
Although if people would have gone missing, they wouldn't have known it either. So anyway, I found
Maybe not.
right. I found this great Substack article that's by the author Connected Realms. And that's titled, quote, What a 1970s Vampirologist Discovered About Real Vampires. During the 1970s, while America was panicking over vampire-inspired serial killers, New York vampirologist Stephen Kaplan was quietly interviewing people who claimed to be actual vampires. His research at the Vampire Research Center uncovered a surprising spectrum.
Sorry, I'm just like mind blown, baffled. Like, you could actually be a vampirologist, like instead of a psychologist or a meteorologist, you're a vampirologist.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how well the pay is, but I guess so. I've also never heard of a degree of this, but
I was just thinking, where do you get this degree?
I would be a vampirologist.
I'll bet you would. And you could study at the Vampire Academy of Arts or whatever you just said.
The Vampire Research Center?
Sure.
The Vampire Academy of Arts. Okay, way to pull that one out of your ass and prove you were paying attention.
Well, because I got very hung up on the vampirologist.
So his research at
all.
the VRC, the Vampire Research Center, uncovered a surprising
I
spectrum.
like the VAA better.
Fetishes to cults, all individuals who seem to live primarily off of human blood. You're so dumb. Stephen separated what he called role players from something far stranger, a tiny group of this larger population of vampires who actually drink large quantities of human blood on the daily.
Gross.
Who showed withdrawal when they were deprived from it. They usually appeared very youthful. They vanished immediately after interviews. These, quote, true vampires, end quote, lived very secretive, nomadic lives. They avoided romantic ties. They had no kids, which obviously Kaplan then expected of them because of his research leading in these directions. The most shocking case was a woman who called herself Elizabeth. She claimed to be 349 years old. That she was turned in the 16th century in England. She described her predatory senses, daily hunting, and said only a dozen vampires like her lived in the U.S. Kaplan verified one of her alleged attacks on a man who lived in Nova Scotia and reported it on the exact same day she said she traveled there. After the interview, she disappeared. She had a new name, a new identity. She was just completely gone. Kaplan concluded that vampires don't match folklore at all. No fangs, coffin, garlic issues, or bat transformations. But what did appear was consistent with this. Vampires drink human blood daily to survive, never have children, live secretly, and may or may not be human anymore. So thank you for trying to spill everything I was talking about earlier.
Sorry, I just want to know.
So he
wasn't trying to spill everything.
So he left a chilling question behind. Are these people suffering from extreme disorders? Or is there real blood-dependent species living in the shadows?
Well, I guess, how would you know? You wouldn't.
Okay, so, as we just discussed, there's lots of lore around vampires and lots of themed tours of the city of New Orleans. Like, it's a pretty hustling and bustling place for vampires. And I'm going to leave us with one skinny little mini true crime case about vampires.
Yay.
Okay, so...
Okay.
Rod Farrell is a former cult leader and a convicted murderer who gained his notoriety in the 90s for his involvement in a brutal double homicide. His case became infamous due to his connections with the self-proclaimed vampire cult. And just, it's a crazy fucking case. It's a horrible case. Sorry, buckle up. Roderick Justin, who is called Rod Farrell, was born on March 28th, 1980 in Murray, Kentucky. He grew up in a troubled environment and developed an interest in the Gothic subculture, primarily vampire mythology, and his family was said to be extremely unstable, and his stepdad introduced him to drugs and alcohol. He became involved in role-playing, such as Vampire the Masquerade, and eventually declared himself as a 500-year-old vampire named Visago. We're not going to call him that.
No, I wouldn't.
During his teen years, Rod began attracting a group of followers who shared his fascination with vampires. The group, which called itself the Vampire Clan, consisted of other disaffected youths who liked to engage in rituals and blood drinking ceremonies.
Yummy.
Apparently his vampirism and interest in the like came from his mom, which totally creepy that she also practiced vampirism herself.
Yeah.
And she once wrote to one of the clan members members' younger brothers. Mind you, said clan member's younger brother was not a part of this clan, that she would be his bride for all of eternity. And he was only 14.
Creepy.
So that's super weird and fucked up.
Yeah, that's
Next level weird.
That's pedophilia.
Uh-huh. Rod and his group of vampire clan members would meet at an abandoned cement structure pinned Hotel California.
Okay, cool, guys.
So this building is located in the middle of the woods in an area called Land Between the Lakes. These meetings would often include things like drinking each other's blood, as well as, other death rituals, killing things. Although no crimes would have been proven to take place here, it's most likely where the murders were all planned. In November 1996, 16-year-old Rod and his followers traveled from Kentucky to Eustis, Florida, where his friend Heather Wendorf lived. She was 15 and she reportedly told Rod that she wanted to escape from her home, saying that living with her parents were hell, that Richard and Ruth Wendorf, her parents, that they were abusive, although there's no evidence to support this claim.
She's just a dramatic 15-year-old.
Uh-huh. So on November 25th, 1996, Rod and his accomplice, 17-year-old Howard Scott Anderson, broke into the Wendorf home. Heather and the other girls that were with the vampire clan were not at the home when the murders took place. Charity Kessie and her friend Dana Cooper had driven Heather to her boyfriend's apartment so Heather could say goodbye before leaving for New Orleans, leaving her friends, leaving Rod and the other guy, the accomplice.
Howard?
Yeah, Howard Scott. His name was Scott. He went by Scott. At the home. So they went in through the garage, which was unlocked. Rod used a crowbar to bludgeon Richard to death, her dad.
Crowbar?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You said a crowbar.
Did I? I meant a crowbar.
That's okay.
I'm wordsing. I don't know. My dyslexia is having a big deal right now. It's like words are... And I'm really tired, so it doesn't help.
Hate that.
I've never been properly diagnosed with dyslexia, but I know the way the words float around on the screen that is what that is.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I have it too, but
the words just float around and change directions and change places.
Yeah,
on each other.
It's either that or some kind of hallucinogen that we're on. I'm not really sure.
Life. He then attacked Ruth, her mom, while she was in the shower, and he also bludgeoned her with the crowbar. What did I say? The crowbar?
Yes.
Yep, that. Their daughter, Jennifer, Heather's sister, found her parents.
Ugh.
After the murders, Ron and his vampire clan fled for Louisiana. It is believed that Rod likes a video arcade in New Orleans, so that's where they went.
Claw machines?
Uh-huh. One of the girls, Charity Kessie, placed a call to her grandmother in South Dakota. The group needed money, and Charity thought her grandma could help them. However, her grandma informed the police about where they were and helped trick Rod, Heather, and the rest of the teens into going to a local Howard Johnson's hotel in Baton Rouge, where they were all arrested.
Good.
And
good on you, Grandma.
Yep. The four were held at Baton Rouge jail for a week before being extradited back to Florida, where they were initially booked at Lake County Jail. They were later moved to a juvenile facility in Ocala. Rod's attorneys tried to argue that he was insane, that he was diagnosed with mental disorders, including schizotypal personality disorder and Asperger's. The University of Florida further attested that Rod sometimes witnessed spiritual things such as angels and demons. So he initially pled guilty to the murders, and he claimed that everyone except Howard Scott Anderson was innocent, that no one else was there. They weren't involved in the planning. They were just in the car, whatever.
Okay.
At the time, he was the youngest person in the United States history to be sentenced to death. However, his sentence was later overturned and reduced to life in prison without the possibility of parole because the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that juveniles could not receive the death penalty. Howard Scott Anderson was also sentenced to life in prison, but his sentence was later reduced also, which made him eligible for parole, but he's still in prison.
Okay, good, because I'm oh gosh.
I think he's still in prison anyway. Heather Wendorf was not charged in connection to the crime, as authorities determined she had no involvement with planning or carrying out the murders.
So what did she think was going to happen?
I don't know, that they were just going to run away.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe they were there like, oh, we're just going to pick up your things, grab you, move you out.
Huh. Okay.
Charity Kessie was convicted of 2 counts of third-degree murder, robbery with a gun or deadly weapon, and burglary with an armed weapon or explosives. She was sent...
Explosives?
Yeah.
Wow.
She was
carrying around a
sentenced
stick of
to
dynamite.
10 and a half years in state prison, so I'm pretty sure she's out now. Dana Cooper was convicted of those charges as well, but given a 17 and a half year sentence. Why?
Yeah, why one gets 17 and a half and the other one 10 and a half?
I don't know. I didn't look into it very much.
Sorry.
I was trying not to focus too heavy on the case, even though it's a real true crime case.
It is a real true crime case.
I just thought it was interesting because they're vampires.
Or they think they are.
I've just heard this case a lot, so I wasn't very interested in actually doing a super big deep dive of it. You've heard this case too? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm like, everyone who likes true crime's heard this case. Scott was given the same charges as Rod and was also was sentenced to life in prison, like I said, but now was given the possibility of parole. So Rod Farrell's case obviously like inspired a lot of different like pop culture things like movies, TV shows, video games. And today he's still incarcerated, serving a life sentence. His case is still referenced in discussions about juvenile crimes, the impact of alternative subcultures, and the criminal justice system treatment of young offenders. And wait for this one. Somebody married him.
I'm not surprised.
In 2023.
Oh, that's recent.
Uh-huh.
But I'm not surprised because people do that. Like that chick that married Ted Bundy and like all the fangirling.
And then had his kid.
Yeah. And all the fangirling over like Richard Ramirez and stuff. Like I know you're like, oh, I'm oddly fascinated with him. But would you want to fuck him? No.
Oh, God, no. I think I'd rather die, which I probably would because he likes to kill people. Sorry. Okay. Well, that's all. What'd you think?
I liked it a lot.
Good. I hope Vienna likes it. And I hope everyone else likes it too, obviously.
Yeah.
But specifically, Vienna asked for it, so I hope she likes it.
Your use of the word moist will be her favorite part, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm positive. Those moist, wet, soakingly moist blood bandages. The blood moistened bandages.
Gross.
How nasty can I make this?
Oh.
Okay, well, that's all I've got. You can hit us with a follow, a case request, a like, any of those things on Instagram at That's Disturbing Podcast. You can send us a Gmail, that's disturbingpodcast@gmail.com. We would so love and appreciate it if you would leave us a review on wherever you listen to your podcast. Unless you don't like us, then like we're a different podcast. Come on. We're not us.
At least leave us a semi-positive review.
Right? Don't be like, oh my God, I listened to this long for them to ask to leave a review, but I fucking hate them. Then why the fuck are you listening if you feel that way about us?
Seriously.
Right? If you're going to leave a review to be like, you're so annoying and you suck so bad, then it's like, why are you listening? Why are you spending your valuable time in this life being a hater?
Right.
That's what I'm concerned about your health, that you're spending your valuable time hating on me and what I'm doing with my life and how the fuck that impacts you. I'm just not sure. What was it? Dearly Delilah or something like that? XX?
Something.
Yeah.
But it's like, well then.
Dear Dahlia. It was Dahlia because I remember because I'm going, fuck. A, that's the name of my favorite murder case. B, my future daughter's name is going to be Dahlia. I've always wanted that. Daphne and Dahlia.
That's not Delilah.
Nope, because it's Dahlia. I just said that. It's actually
I thought you said
Dahlia.
Delilah.
I did at first.
Okay, my bad. But yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, just don't listen then. Like, there's 872.
Right, if you're leaving a comment that says, meh.
It's an Didn't even bother with the part. Just didn't like us, gave us 2 stars, basically said we sucked shit. And then
then it's like, then don't listen. Hop the fuck off.
Don't listen, right? Listen to something else.
Right. If you hate us that bad, why are you listening to us?
Yep, exactly. Unless you just wanted an honorable mention. And now you've gotten it.
And now you've gotten it. But guess what? We don't like you either. My tongue was sticking out at you.
All right. Well, on that note,
bye-bye.